What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. And we are the Fan Upstate rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Thrilled to have you guys with us. Here's how you can take part in the show. You can give us a ring at 844-326-3663 on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone. The text line is there for you at 71307 to start your text with the word. Whoa. Are you seeing what's going on here?
Uh-oh.
Well. Mississippi State 65, Tennessee 50.
Is this enough in your mind? A 15-point blowout in a quarterfinal game against, I can't see it from here, a 9 seed?
Yeah.
Getting blown out by a 9 seed. Is that enough to drop Tennessee off the 1 line in the NCAA tournament?
That's what you're thinking, right? I mean, that's certainly what you're thinking. It's like, man, they're not supposed to lose this. They're not supposed to drop this game. This is not what's supposed to happen. And then you're saying to yourself, okay, well, these were kind of locks, right? Houston, Kentucky, Purdue, and Tennessee. Who's there chomping at the bit to take Tennessee's spot? Who is there? North Carolina is ahead of Tennessee in both polls. UNC could be the shoo-in. Can you imagine that Clemson is good enough to beat UNC in Chapel Hill, but bad enough to lose to Notre Dame and Boston College in random weeks? Didn't they lose to NC State as well this year at some point? I'd say Arizona, North Carolina, those are the 2 contenders, but this is just not supposed to happen, my friends. Not supposed to happen, and one could say that North Carolina essentially has a bye to a 1 seed right now. They get Pitt today, the winner of Virginia and NC State. Clemson is already gone, the team that beat them earlier this year. Oh, my word. What a shocker in the SEC tournament quarterfinal. Like, a 1 seed is not supposed to have 8 losses, okay? It's not supposed to happen. Houston has 3 losses. Connecticut has 3 losses. Purdue has 3 losses. This is going to be Tennessee's 8th loss, 67-53. Mississippi State leaves 2:36 to go in the game. It's going to be Tennessee's 8th loss of the year. North Carolina has 6. Arizona has 7. Between those 3, I'd give it to UNC. Well, look at this. Also, some breaking news on the show today. Aaron Donald retires, 32 years of age. Always got the sense with him too, right, that he would call it quits early. So freaking dominant. Pro Bowl in all 10 seasons of his career. That's a career, man. That's a career. Rams GM Les Snead said there will never be another Aaron Donald. He's 32. He was never going to be one of those guys that stuck around and beat up his body forever. Aaron Donald and the Rams are now have now fallen precipitously from where they were. That dude was unblockable for 10 years. I mean, that's a good life if you can get it, right? 10 years, make the Pro Bowl every year, make over $100 million in your career, set for life at the age of 32. No more worries for any of us.
That's one of the reasons why, and people laughed at me. That's one of the reasons why I said Patrick Mahomes should go ahead and retire. This is becoming more and more common. Players retiring at younger and younger ages. Like, what's really the difference in walking away from your career with $100 million versus $150 million or $175 million?
Or Diesel, $100 million and $500 million. What's really the difference?
Yeah. Would you rather walk away young and healthy or have your eggs scrambled?
Because can you put a price on having your eggs in the shell versus having them scrambled? Can you put a price on that? No, you can't. Right? Patrick Mahomes has got the deal, though. He's got the fat deal. We'll see if he finishes out. So some really interesting kind of breaking news going on right at the beginning of the show today, my friends. This is not what we expected. Like, Mississippi State right now is not even in the tournament, if I'm honest with you. They're not even in. And a team that's not even in, like here we were busting Clemson's balls about that. What is it? Everyone who wears orange has to suddenly suck? What's going on here? Mississippi State, okay, is among the last 4 byes to get in. So right now, Mississippi State is team number 62 in the tournament. Now they're in, and they're in easily. And what did South Carolina do on Saturday that was so impressive? So impressive. They went to Mississippi State and won on the road in a game that Mississippi State really had to have. Don't need to have it anymore. They just got a better win than South Carolina. Just beat a projected number 1. How about that? Purdue, Houston, Tennessee, and now North Carolina takes the place of Tennessee. No longer the only 10 I see. SEC projections, Tennessee is a 2, Kentucky's a 3, Alabama a 4, Auburn a 4, South Carolina a 5, and Florida a 7. Florida gets Alabama tonight in the SEC tournament quarterfinal. All right, my friends. So let us get this party started today with a little bit of this. Okay, with a little bit of this and a little bit of that. NFL free agency. You know, I'm a proponent of looking at who got better, who got worse. All right, who got better, who got worse thus far in free agency. And admittedly, there is a long way to go, but I've got opinions. I've got opinions in droves. All right, first up for me, who got better? The Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals have T. Higgins, who wants a trade on a franchise tag. They got rid of Joe Mixon, their running back, but they added Zach Moss, who is more affordable and more athletic. Okay? Joe Mixon has not averaged over 4.1 yards a carry since his second year back in 2018. So this is a guy in the 3-point-something yards per carry range. They also added safety Geno Stone from Baltimore, who was one of the key cogs in Baltimore's attack. So what do you do there? You kill 2 birds. See what I did there with the Baltimore Ravens? Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You take a division rival, you hurt a division rival, and you drastically help a position of need. Man, you did that. You did that. Hurt the rival, help yourself. 7 interceptions in 2023 for 1 Geno Stone. The Bengals have gotten better, and not just because they're getting Joe Burrow back next year. Also getting better through free agency. What do we got here? I've got the Green Bay Packers. Are you kidding me? The Green Bay Packers add Josh Jacobs, add Xavier McKinney. Yes, they lose Aaron Jones. David Bakhtiari's got 1 foot into retirement. John Runyon they lose. Aaron Jones, they had him for 7 years, but they signed Josh Jacobs. They get a younger replacement for him. Aaron Rodgers' $40 million dead cap hit is off their books this season. All right. They hit big on the free agent market. 24-year-old New York safety Giants Xavier McKinney. Good gosh. Wow. McKinney, by the way, Green Bay forced quarterbacks to throw into a tight window only 12.4% of the time. McKinney led all players who lined up at safety in forced throws through tight windows, 31% of the time. Massive pickup there for the Green Bay Packers. Josh Jacobs young, Josh Jacobs tireless. They traded up, they traded in. 4 years, $48 million. The best running backs in the NFL are getting about $10 to $12 million. Third team to me that got better. And I can't believe this, although I shouldn't be surprised because their GM, Diesel, crazy story here. The GM of the Philadelphia Eagles, his name is Howie Roseman. He was a junior at Florida when I was a freshman. Okay? The GM of the Philadelphia Eagles had no background in playing, had no background in the game, was a guy just like you and me. This is the time where we're lamenting the career choices that we've made, okay? Because he had set out to he wanted to work in an NFL front office. He left notes on Steve Spurrier's car until Steve Spurrier made him a student equipment manager. Like he was kind of psycho, like leaving notes on the head coach's car. Hey, can I do this? Can I carry water? Can I do this? And finally Spurrier brought him on.
Now all he is one of the best GMs in the NFL, right? One of the best GMs in the NFL. If you could go back, Mark Ryan, would you try to be a GM or would you try to be a host? I don't know, man. I love what I do. I don't think I'm supposed to be a behind-the-scenes guy. I think I'm supposed to be in front of the scenes guy. I don't know. Some guys would prefer to be behind the scenes, right? My family, we got the performer's gene. My sister's a singer. My mom and dad run the church choir. They do plays. I don't know. We got the performer's gene in our family. But Howie Roseman, Florida Gator, gets an A. Why? Signed Saquon Barkley. Gets Bryce Huff, the stud defensive end, in free agency. By the way, Bryce Huff's pass rush win rate was second in the NFL. Second in the NFL. How crazy is that? Then they get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who was a Philadelphia Eagle, and they get him back after he had a one-year rental stint in Detroit. Get him back after that. I mean, how unbelievable is that of a job in free agency? A year ago, Philadelphia was one of those teams that lost a lot. He was one of those teams that lost, one of those teams that lost a lot, right? But Bryce Huff, man, my goodness gracious, has one of the best first steps in the league. Philadelphia improved significantly. But for every yin, there's a yang. For every sunny day, there is a rainy one. Who got worse? Who did this in free agency? Boop, boop, boop. Who backed up just a little bit? Guys, if you feel otherwise on this, make your case, because I don't see it. I really, really, really don't see it. A big step back for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, they got one win. They signed 33-year-old linebacker Eric Kendricks, who it was felt was going to go to San Francisco, flipped the script, chose Dallas at the last minute. But philosophically, what Dallas is doing doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. All right? In order for Dallas to have the cap space to be a real player in free agency this year, they needed to give an extension to Dak Prescott, ABCD Lamb, and they needed to spread the cap hits out across future seasons instead of having this lump sum hit all at once. They didn't do that. And so them deciding not to do that, or their inability to get that done, seems to say the Cowboys front office doesn't mind not being able to make any moves right now. Who cares? We're good. But are you really good? Michael Gallup wants a trade. Amari Cooper's no longer in town. Ezekiel Elliott is not walking through that door. Tony Pollard signed a free agent deal elsewhere. They should have re-signed Pro Bowl left tackle Tyron Smith, 5-time Pro Bowl cornerback, the upstate's own Stephon Gilmore. Found a running back to replace Tony Pollard. They did none of the above. The Dallas Cowboys have gotten worse, easily gotten worse. Who else has bitten the boop, boop, boop train? Who else has taken a step back? Guys, for me, it's got to be the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos, guys, consider this for a second. They ate $85 million in a dead cap hit just to get rid of Russell Wilson, okay? Hey, we don't want you to play it all for us. We're going to eat the money. We're going to pay Russell Wilson $38 million and make Pittsburgh just play $1 million. We want this guy out of here. That tells me that, I'm not saying anything about Russell Wilson's character, but that tells me that, that was a cancerous situation to Denver. That left them with the ability to do nothing. Then Denver compounds that problem by cutting 4-time second-team All-Pro safety Justin Simmons. He's 24 years old. Why would they do that? Why would you cut a 4-time second-team All-Pro safety Justin Simmons if you weren't getting the first-team All-Pro safety that's 24 years old? Well, because Russell Wilson left you with no money. You want to start your rebuild. He is but one player. He's making $14.5 million. With the needs on that team, having a safety making $14.5 million is like having a BMW in the driveway of a house without a roof. Didn't make sense to them. Brutal offseason for Denver. and Russell Wilson got him there. Denver's going to vie for the number 1 pick in the draft next year. And then finally, to me, bad offseason going to the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are like trending toward irrelevancy. They really are. I mean, they are really taking a massive step back. And what is the reason for that? Well, the Saints want to restructure almost every contract they have, okay, in order to chase winning the NFC South. But their desire to do that is limiting their ability to do anything besides re-sign some of their own players. So instead of trying to make trades and free up cap space and sign players, they're trying to restructure everybody. Restructure, help us win the NFC South. Well, if that's your ceiling, congratulations. I mean, maybe that's what keeps, your jobs if you win the NFC South. But by doing what you're doing, that's your ceiling. That's your ceiling. You're not doing anything anywhere else. Saints also released Michael Thomas. So, my friends, 3 teams that got better. Cincinnati, Green Bay, and Philadelphia. 3 teams who got worse. Dallas, Denver, and New Orleans. Dallas, Denver, and New Orleans got worse in free agency. Period. End of story. Thanks for playing. No questions asked. How do you do? Better and worse today, my friends. Texter says, Mark, Atlanta has gotten way better. The team who's gotten worse is the Saints. They haven't done anything good. Have the Falcons gotten better? Yes. Have the Falcons overpaid? Also, yes. I do think you're really going to like Rondale Moore. You're really going to like Rondale Moore. He's a guy that should have been used more in Arizona. Elite playmaker. Think Devin Hester. Think wide receiver screen guy. Think game-breaking kind of ability. You're going to like Rondale Moore if he's correctly used. Texter says, I want to ask a question about Brad Brownell. What does it say about Graham Neff, who told you Brownell was safe if he took the next step and made it to the NCAA tournament? If he now fires him after making the tournament, in my opinion, that does not speak very highly of his credibility and trustworthiness. And I think to recruit an effective basketball coach in the future, if Neff wanted stipulations. By the way, Texter, could you possibly break these up a little bit? Like, in other words, send us one text that's 2 or 3 lines and another text that's 2 or 3 lines. That would be awesome. If Neff wanted stipulations in addition to making the tournament, he should have told you that last year. Moving the goalpost is a bad look. Texter, Neff never guaranteed that Brad Brownell would be back if he made the tournament. Those words were never spoken to me. When management speaks, management usually speaks purposely vague because they don't want to be pinned down to something. They look at the whole picture, right? So if the whole picture is the athletic department paid $500,000 to get Joe Girard to come here, and that got them into the tournament, but outside of that, things look strikingly the same, and now Joe Girard and PJ Hall are gone, why would you bring Brad Brownell back? That's not a step. That's a blip, Diesel. That's not a trend. He's looking for a trend in the right direction. I wouldn't think it looks bad on Graham Neff. I mean, he said, if we don't take the next step this season, there will be a change. What is the next step? He can define that. Not you. He can.
And people always want to, keep receipts and say, well, a year ago, you said exactly this, and now you're not doing exactly that. Well, guess what, Texter? The circumstances have changed since then. The circumstances have changed, yet the results end up being the same.
100%. So, guys, like if Clemson has a flame out in the NCAA tournament, if they lose to a 11 seed or 12 seed, like they just lost to an 11 seed or 12 seed in the ACC tournament. By the way, they're going to be playing a better team in the NCAA tournament than Boston College, okay? And they just lost to BC by 20. So what's the scenario there? What's the scenario? Okay, my friends, up next, let us have a little discussion. Best and worst case scenarios, Clemson and South Carolina football next season. Oh, yes, having fun on a Friday. It's the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Brandon, I love you, but you're telling me even Las Vegas believes Atlanta is a 12-13 win team. That's a huge improvement. Brandon, I love you, brother.
With old-ass Kirk Cousins.
Please cite your source, sir. Please. Because, Brandon, last season, the Kansas City Chiefs, do you know what their over-under was for wins? Was 11.5. So you're telling me the Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins on collecting the senior discount, okay, has a higher by a full game over-under win total projection than Kansas City did last year. Come on, man. Come on, man. I mean, I know it's early. NFL over-unders are not released yet. They don't view Atlanta as a 12 or 13 win team. Diesel, your best guess right now, 17 games. What would Atlanta's over-under win total be? 17 games. It's not out yet. Okay, it's not out yet. But what would you guess that it would be?
2023 record. They went 7-10. I'm gonna go 8-9.
Okay, so
maybe 9 wins. Maybe give them 2 wins.
I would set the over/under at 9.5. Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't sign Kirk Cousins not to make the playoffs, right? You probably got to go 10-7 to make the playoffs. So I would set the over/under right there at 9.5. We got my guy Brandon is saying it's a 12-13 win team right now. Okay, Brandon, listen, I hope you're right.
Kirk Cousins isn't getting you 5 wins.
Diesel just said same results. A texter says NCAA tournament berth is not the same results. You're right, texter. You're right. But I think what you're attempting to do that management always tries to avoid doing is you're trying to nail management down. You're trying to pigeonhole them. You said this. Well, he said, take the next step. Now, is making the tournament taking the next step? I would say so. But then you got to look at how does the season feel? It feels like the wheels are falling off again. Okay? It feels like your rent-a-player, Joe Girard, is the reason you're in the tournament. And I don't know what's going on in the locker room or if the team chemistry is no longer good or what's going on. I don't get it. But this has the feeling like you made it, but, right? You made it.
And I also, when I say same results, I also mean we're talking about this under the auspices that maybe they get blown out in the first round and they got embarrassed and bounced in the first round of the NIT last year.
Yep. Texter says, also quoting your tweet, Mark Ryan, if we aren't in the tourney next season, there will be a change. Maybe he told you more than that, but us that listen to you take that to mean he is safe if he makes the tournament. Why? If we aren't in the tourney next season, there will be a change. Okay? That means definitively if he misses the tournament, he's gone. But does it mean definitively if he makes the tournament, he's safe? I wouldn't say so. He's offered you a definition on the negative, right? The negative outcome. He's given you no assurances on the positive outcome. Why would you assume that, texter? I don't understand that. So I will bring you in fully to that conversation. Okay? I'll bring you fully into that conversation. I was at the Clemson spring game, and they gave me a field pass, which was awesome. All right? And I got to tell you guys, Clemson, the university, the athletic department, they have always been first class with me. Always have been first class with me. They've been incredibly nice, incredibly warm. Even when I've been critical, they've still welcomed. They still welcome me. And it's gone along with the family atmosphere and the family vibe that the whole university and the football team has. So I'm on the sidelines, and Graham Neff is walking right by where I am, and he's shaking hands and he's talking to people. And honestly, Okay. I was thinking, okay, he knows these players that are around me, and he knows these boosters that are around me, but he's not going to know me. And so he goes to walk by me and he goes, Mark Ryan, and he sticks his hand out. And I didn't know if he knew who I was because I had my Fan Upstate shirt on and it said Mark, M-A-R-C. You know, I didn't know. Like, he goes, Mark, good to see you. Glad you made it here. And I said, Graham, good to see you. Good to see you. And he goes, Mark, I'm Graham. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, I know who you are. Of course I know who you are. You're athletic director of the NFL team, quote unquote NFL team in the state, in the area, in the upstate. And so he said, I wanted to address a couple of the points you guys have made on the show. And I said, okay. He goes, number one, we do care about basketball here. We do. And he had like his finger raised like this, right? His index finger. We do care about basketball here. He goes, I want you to know, like, we thought we were a tournament team. Never had the third place team in the ACC not made the tournament. We thought we were a tournament team. Okay. So in our minds, you know, yes, Brad Brownell, we wanted him to make the tournament this year, but being third place in the ACC and then being the first team ever that doesn't get in, like, what was that? So we felt like we got a raw deal. I will tell you that losing to Morehead State in the NIT was unacceptable. And the phrase that he used was, it popped the balloon of our positive season. And he said, I'm not telling you anything that Brad Brownell doesn't know. If we don't take the next step this coming season, there's going to be a change. And I'm sitting there and it just felt surreal. It just, not because, guys, like, we have chats with coaches and athletic directors all the time. It wasn't surreal to be speaking with Graham Neff. I spoke with Dan Radakovich, the AD, before him quite a bit. Okay. It's not that was not what was shocking. What was shocking is what he was sharing with me. Okay. And that's what was having me saying, is this really happening right now? Like, I can't believe he was going through it. Diesel, when I went on the air with this, you said he's going through the talking points one by one that we've had. Right. And he even referenced, I know, Mark, the 3 tournaments, 13 years doesn't sound good. We expect more. So then I said to him, are you okay with me sharing this with my audience? Are you okay with that? And he said, yeah, I'm not telling you anything that Brad Brownell doesn't already know. Brad and I have had these conversations already. I'm not telling you that. So then I said, can I get a picture with you? He says, of course. So I take the picture, I post the tweet, firestorm. That never happened. That never happened. You're making it up. And I'm like, if that never happened and I'm tweeting it from the sideline, you don't think Clemson would have escorted me out within 5 minutes? Within 5 minutes. You don't think they would say your credential is revoked, your credential is suspended? I was right back there for the Florida State game this year.
If that didn't happen, do you think that maybe once out of the half a dozen times it's come up on the show since then, that they would have released some sort of statement, either internally, quietly on their social media, calling us directly and refuting it, calling into the show and refuting it?
Right. But Diesel, it shows a lot about their character that they didn't, in a positive way. Because had they done that, I would be getting a ton of heat.
They could have blistered you.
But that would be blistering me, and that wouldn't be true. That did happen, But of course, you, the Clemson fan, right? You, the South Carolina fan, me, the Florida fan, we're always going to believe our school over a media guy, over a media member. You're always going to believe your school. So if Clemson had come out with a statement and said the statements made by Mark Ryan are untrue and never happened, that would be damaging to me. But I greatly appreciate that they didn't do that, because Graham Neff knew the conversation did happen. I've emailed with him since then, right? I've emailed with him since then. We're fine. We're good. Nothing happened that was not approved. So, guys, why did he share this with us? Why did he share this with me instead of somebody else? He heard the show. They listened to the show. They heard the talking points. He sought me out. Mark Ryan, good to see you. And we had that conversation, and that was that. So there you go. Now you have the whole backstory and everything. Mark, why is South Carolina so welcoming with you guys? Why is South Carolina not so welcoming with you guys? There are people within the South Carolina athletic department that run that athletic department like a high school. Okay. In other words, very small-minded, very parochial, very like, if you have any negative words to say, we're revoking your credential. And this is not an opinion of mine. This is a known small-minded, small town mentality. Columbia isn't a small town. South Carolina isn't a small school. It stands to reason. You wonder, why would they have that mentality? But they haven't just had that mentality with me. They've had that mentality with a lot of people who have been critical of them. Access not granted, press passes not approved. You can't get people on the show. I remember, guys, I attended a Shane Beamer Zoom press conference, okay, via Zoom. And I asked a question, and the sports information director was blowing me up on the chat saying, who is this? Who is this? What is this? How did you get in here? How did you get the access? And I said, my boss sent me the link. That's why I'm in here. But it was a million questions. Like, he saw Mark Ryan and like the fear of God came over him. Diesel, how did you get in here? My boss sent me the link. That's how I'm in here. Okay. It's just, guys, I can just tell you that Clemson, their athletic department, behaves like a big-time college football athletic department. Okay. South Carolina behaves in many respects, the athletic department, like a high school. You are critical of us. We are revoking your access. Guys, when I was in Houston, my previous stop, you could be writing an article at a Houston Texans game or a Houston Astros game. You could be sitting in their press box, eating their food, writing an article, eviscerating them, and it would never change your press credential. It would never change that. Okay, never. How about another pro team that does things the right way? Okay, in this respect, the Carolina Panthers. Okay, the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers, we share that they would not be hiring Steve Wilkes. Okay, that was the scoop we got. And the Carolina Panthers said they reached out to me and they said, hey, Mark, can you give us a quick call? Sure. Carolina Panthers said, Mark, we want to invite you anytime you get a scoop like that. You can call us, share it with us. We'll point you in the right direction if the scoop has validity or not. And I said, cool. Well, what do you think about this scoop? They said, Steve Wilkes might have validity, but you mentioned D'Amico Ryans, that there was an interest in interviewing him, and we haven't heard that part of that yet. And I said, they said, doesn't mean we couldn't interview D'Amico Ryans. We just haven't heard it. These were people with the Carolina Panthers. Okay. Now, not everybody in an organization knows who you're interviewing. Okay. Like the sports information director might not know that Ray Tanner, who he's going to interview if Lamont Paris or Don Staley left. He might not be privy to that information. But the way the Panthers handled that was great. The way that Beamer handles that is to light the station on fire. Not just me. His arrow should have been pointed at me, right? Should have never been pointed at anyone but me. But he said, I'm going to light the whole station on fire. And I thought that was insulting to everyone at the station when his problem was with me. Do you see the difference between how Carolina Panthers handled that and South Carolina Gamecocks did? Gamecocks, their coach goes nuclear on social media. No phone call, no nothing, no discussion. Carolina Panthers reach out to me. I actually asked Diesel, can you handle this for a few minutes so I can take this call? And I stepped out. I took the call. I talked to them, had a great relationship. They said, we appreciate all you guys do for us. I said, I appreciate all you do for us. Well, I got to be honest with you. The Gamecocks should appreciate all we do for them. The Clemson Tigers should appreciate all we do for them. I know Furman appreciates all we do for them. Diesel, it was great to see when we wanted to decorate the studio that you reached out and the Gamecocks sent us a flag.
Yeah, they said no problem.
No problem.
We got you.
Sent us a flag. They sent us a super nice flag. So in some respects, some of the people there, I think, have the right mentality. Okay? And I'm not saying anything about your school if you're a Gamecock fan. I'm just saying, you know, some of the people in that athletic department run it like it's a high school. Very, very parochial. You criticize us, you're not going to have access. Big league teams don't behave that way. Okay? Big league teams understand that there's no such thing as bad publicity. I'm Mark Ryan, and I approve this message. What say you guys about that? All right, up next on the show, I need to ask you your strategy for something very, 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 very important. That, my friends, is next. And this is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Auburn and South Carolina in the SEC tournament quarterfinal underway. 6-5 Auburn in the early going. Remember, Auburn pounded the Gamecocks into oblivion, 101-61. South Carolina's worst loss of the year, point total wise, last month.
Turned them from the Gamecocks to the Game Over Cocks.
Yeah. So Auburn 24-7, South Carolina 26-6, but both teams 13-5 in SEC play. This is a good one. Guys, this matchup could very well be a semifinal matchup, but you got these two teams meeting in the quarterfinal as well. One of them is going to feel robbed not to have made it to the Final Four in the SEC. Who has already made it to the Final Four? How about Mississippi State? Unbelievably shocking. Tennessee today. Other quarterfinal coming tonight. Alabama and Florida. Alabama revenge on their minds. Gators beat them by 20 points about 10 days ago in Gainesville, Florida. This one on a neutral court. So really interesting stuff there. Tennessee is gonzo. South Carolina Auburn plays Mississippi State for the right to go to the SEC tournament final. Wow. Kentucky versus Texas A&M, Florida against Alabama on the other side of the bracket. Texter says, Mark, Clemson has definitely been known to revoke press passes. You just aren't critical to them. What are you talking about? Diesel, am I critical to Clemson? Like all the time.
Yeah.
We're all the time critical to Clemson. Like, what are you talking about?
How many times have we talked about Dabo Swinney not engaging in the transfer portal and NIL and how bad that is and how backward thinking that is?
You know, Texter, I'll share this with you. You know, like we went back and we tracked what we've said, and I went back and I looked at a lot of our posts, and I found that our content posting on South Carolina was 58% positive, 42% negative. Now, is it possible it seems like more than that to you? Yeah, because maybe every other host is 90% positive, 10% negative. Ours was 58% positive, 42% negative. But here's the caveat, and here's where this is on you, not me, on you. The caveat is that 9 of our top 10 biggest posts in terms of engagement were negative. So if you think about, you have 100 posts, 58 are positive, 42 are negative, okay? But the top 10 most highest performing posts of that 100, 9 of the top 10 were negative. Well, who makes them perform well? You. It's the same reason the local news leads with bad news, because that's what you gravitate toward. That's not on us. It's on you. You make that determination. All right, guys, I want to ask you this question, okay? We've got March Madness coming next week, all right? And I can't wait. We'll have full shows the whole week long. I feel like it's going to be really neat to be able to do shows during. Did I just say neat? My God, I'm sounding like my parents.
What is this, the 1950s?
Neat. This is going to be really neat, guys.
What
Yay.
a gas.
Hooray. Wow.
Gee, Willikers.
What is going on with me? Dag nabbit. But no,
you know you're old the first time you say "for crying out loud."
Right. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be more like a scoreboard show. You know, like those two shows, Thursday and Friday next week, will be keeping you a favorite word of next week. Oh my God. The Steelers are trading Kenny Pickett to the Eagles. Are you serious? I knew that was BS, Diesel. I knew that was BS. They were floating this line. We still believe in Kenny Pickett. And I said, no one signs Russell Wilson if you believe in the quarterback that you have. No one would do that. Are you kidding me? Steelers trading Kenny Pickett? They saw 2 years. Of course they're going to say we still believe in him. Why wouldn't they say we believe in him? They'd say we believe in him because they want to trade him. They want to enhance his trade value. How much is somebody worth where the organization doesn't believe anything in him? Wow. That Diesel, can you give me the details on that by chance? Kenny Pickett traded to the Eagles from the Pittsburgh Steelers to Philadelphia. How about that? What are the details on that deal? 6'6", early going, defensive struggle, Auburn, South Carolina. The winner of this game is going to be a heavy favorite. The winner of this game might be the favorite to win the SEC tournament. Now that Tennessee is gone. All right, Diesel, what do you got? Okay, I got you. Kenny Pickett traded to the Eagles. So, guys, I wanted to bring you into this, okay? It's going to be a scoreboard show. It's going to be a fun scoreboard show. Yes, Diesel.
Okay, so the quote here, this is a quote from ESPN's Adam Schefter, reporting, quote, once Pittsburgh signed Russell Wilson, Pickett preferred to move on. The Steelers will receive the number 98 pick in the 2024 draft, along with two 2025 seventh-round picks. So one the 98th pick this year and two seventh-rounders next year.
So Philadelphia essentially said, can you believe that? That's a bad move by Kenny Pickett. How long is Russell Wilson going to be there? 1 year? 2 years? And instead, you got shipped to a place where they're never going to replace their quarterback. Third-round pick. It's, tail end of the third round, probably a compensatory pick range. So Philadelphia, again, but they have compensatory picks that happen after. And here's how that works. You lose a free agent, the NFL gives you a pick at the end of the third round, depending on how valuable the free agent was, right? So you could get a fourth-round pick, a fifth-round pick. So it's a compensatory pick. And that's in the compensatory pick zone. But again, Howie Roseman, Florida Gator, Philadelphia Eagles GM, does it again. I would ask you, is your backup quarterback with as abused as Jalen Hurts gets, is that worth a third-round pick? Of course it is. And you're getting a guy that was a first-round pick 2 years ago. So, I mean, credit to Kenny Pickett. Look, he kept it quiet, didn't bitch, didn't moan, didn't complain, didn't say, I want out of here now publicly. Went to his employer, through his agent, said, if this is what they're going to do, I'd like to move on. And he moved on, but he moved on to a place with a 25-year-old starting quarterback who isn't going anywhere. You know? I mean, if I'm Kenny Pickett, send me to a place like Tennessee where the starter isn't cemented. Send me to Minnesota where I have a chance to potentially win that job. Send me to the Los Angeles Rams where, like, how much longer does Matt Stafford possibly have? Send me to the Las Vegas Raiders. Who's their starting quarterback?
Why would you want to, if you're going to sit behind Russ, you're definitely going to sit behind Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Like, unless he goes down. I mean, Russ is on a one-year deal. It's always possible that he could show out in Pittsburgh and they would want to extend him. But you don't know that for sure at this point. Like, I get wanting to leave and wanting to have a chance to compete for the job. But you're not competing for the job in Philadelphia.
Ever. So, in other words, he was complaining about the situation he had, and Pittsburgh just sent him to a worse situation than the one he had. Philadelphia's not as good as the situation he had. By the way, early going, it is Auburn 12, South Carolina 8. Auburn just missed a bunny right by the rim. No idea. It's a chippy. They just missed a chippy right by the rim. And South Carolina scores now 12-10, Auburn over South Carolina in the first half of this particular game. All right, my friends, are you ready for the always super fun interview that is coming your way next with our great friend Brent Beard? 14 teams in the college football playoff. Why did we do this without any single discussion? Make it make sense, my friends. I can't make sense of it. That is next. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ron, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Great to have you guys with us. Always do appreciate your time. Here is how you can be a part of the show. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663 on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone. And you can hit us on the text line at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. 17-14 Auburn over South Carolina. About a quarter of the way through this one. Very, very competitive contest, unlike the first time these two teams met. And joining us right now is a Heisman Trophy voter, is on First Coast News in Jacksonville. He happens to be a great friend of mine as well, and his name is Brent Beard. Joining us right now on the show, as he does each and every Friday at this time. Good afternoon, pal. What's good? How's life treating you?
Well, we're doing okay. I think what I'm really excited about hoops. I mean, I'm obviously my favorite sport's college football, but I enjoy hoops this time of year as much as I do anything. So, yes, competitive game, certainly with South Carolina and Auburn. We didn't see that competitive game in that first one, did we, Mark? With in that shocker to some degree between Mississippi State and Tennessee.
Unbelievable how this thing is going. I've seen Auburn now miss 2 bunnies, but they still lead South Carolina by 5. Brent, why are we going to 20 to 14 teams without even testing the waters on 12 yet? Do you understand the why here? I mean, it's always money. I understand the why is always money, but why wouldn't we go from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8? Who do we appreciate? Why would we make this jump as we're doing, and why would they already know conclusively that we're going from 12 to 14 without ever seeing how the 12 works? Then Diesel made the point, Mark, this is a guarantee they're ultimately going to go to 16 because 14 is a really odd number to stop on. So what do you think, Brent? Like, why 14 before we even taste tested 12?
Now, there are some reports out there that say that 14 has not been rubber stamped yet, but I think that's coming partly because Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti wants it, that he wants to get to 16. So, look, I wonder when this expands. See, we're going to expand again, and then maybe, hopefully, prayerfully, we're going to settle down for a while. But I really wonder if I wonder, Mark and Diesel, if we're going to see in our lifetime something akin to a 20 to 24 team playoff somewhere down the road. But that's not coming right now. we're dealing with 12 and we're dealing with 14. So I think that's more from what the commissioners want, from what as opposed to what anybody else wants.
Brent, is the number 14 and is the number going to stay at 14 for the foreseeable future because the Big Ten and the SEC want to have built into the contract buys in the first round?
It very well may be. That's a good point. And the SEC and the Big Ten really want a situation where they're guaranteed 3, if not 4 teams. But I think what's happened with that is they may want 3 or 4 teams in the playoffs, but some of their other commissioners have pushed back on that, and that I think they have laid off that for right now. So, but that's it for the moment. No, I don't. I think the bias have a lot to do with that. I would agree with that. But that there's still some of that we don't know where that's going right now.
Brent, there was reports, all last week that there was significant pushback against the automatic bids. Is that back on the table, even though there was such public outcry against it?
I think I'll put it this way. I think it's back on the table, but it's pretty well just sitting there. And I think they know right now. See, the Big Ten and the SEC are happy because they got the money fixed. That's number one. They wanted to get that 29% for both of them nailed down, and the other conferences basically take what they could get. So it's quite a drop off from 29% to 17% and on down. And guys, my understanding is if the SEC and the Big Ten had not had the agreement from the other conferences that the Big Ten and the SEC would get the most money, that they were ready to play hardball. Now, does that mean that they would just form their own mega conference and have their own playoffs? Perhaps, but for the good of the group, be it fair, unfair, or neutral, they acquiesced to what the Big Ten and the SEC wanted. So for now, the money is taken care of, and there's probably some sigh of relief, at least, whether they agree with it or not.
Brent Beard joining us here, Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Brent, what is your solution to the pitfalls of name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal? We all have different ideas on it. Some that I've heard over the last week include, if you're going to get an NIL deal, you have to sign a 2-year contract with your team.
Yeah.
The collective bargaining agreement, which cannot be challenged legally. You can't sue a collective bargaining agreement, which would be 2 or 3 year contracts per team. What are your ideas? Because, when Nick Saban speaks, Brent, I listen, you listen.
Yes.
His comments this week, in the last week, really spoke volumes to me about a sport that is very unhealthy right now. So what would you do?
Saban wants he wants value for the player. He doesn't have any problem with players being paid. Now, he doesn't want the sport to bankrupt itself in order to do that. Where he's having problems is he does not want to see these players end up at 3 or 4 schools and not get an education, not be developed as players, and thinking they're going to the NFL and they're ready to just plug and play when that is not the case. That is not what he wants. And he's a lot more pro player. I think he's looking at the thing that all of us are talking about would be to call the employee. Now, he's not ready to call them employees. He really doesn't want that to happen. But again, and I've said this for a while, what I wish they would have done, I wish they would have. I have no problem with the players getting more money and Saban and others, and or looking at sharing the revenue from television. But my thought always was, let's supplement what they've got. Let's be sure they're getting more. But why don't you put it in a trust and they get it at the end of their eligibility? I mean, I'm already hearing stories, you guys probably are too, of guys who have got NIL and they've already blown it. That's a real concern where some of this is. Look, it's gotten to the point now to where, and I talked to a consultant friend that I mentioned a few times on here, and again, what he said is within 3 to 5 years, they're going to have contracts. They're going to have, for lack of a better word, a tier system or even a caste system where quarterbacks get paid so much, offensive linemen, et cetera, and that they will have contracts, which also means that they could get fired. Now, my question with this too is, would they have scholarships still, or would they end up having to pay into their NIL for their scholarship? So, guys, look, I certainly don't like it, but it's where we are, and what's the best thing we can do right now to be able to salvage it and save the game.
Brent Beard, First Coast News, joining us here on Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. So, Brent, a lot of the conversation has been around trying to, in some way, shape, or form, reapply restrictions to athletes. Well, a lot of people have a problem with putting any restrictions on athletes because there are no restrictions on coaches. Is there any discussion at all on creating some form of a coaching movement window to limit, say, all coaching hires have to be made during these windows? I think it would probably go a long way to bring the two sides together towards the middle, rather than leave one side where it is, coaches with unlimited freedom, and then try to just restrict the players.
Listen, I've heard nothing about that. I hear it all the time, and certainly understand it. But I don't hear anything in the works about putting any kind of guardrails on where coaches are going. And I don't know if we're ever going to hear anything about that. I mean, you would think at some point that would happen, but everything right now, guys, is directed toward the players, and that's basically been it. So I'm not saying there's not something that could be going on behind the scenes with this, and you're going to hear from coaches, look, I'm just simply climbing the ladder. I started out as a high school coach and a junior high coach and worked my way up. So I should be able to do whatever I want to because I've earned this. I mean, that's what you're going to hear if there ever was. But Diesel, no, I think people want to hear that. I think they want to see that. But and look, for what I look at, read, and study, and people I talk to every day, and you guys tell me if you've heard differently, I don't hear that at all.
Brent Beard joining us here, Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Brent, to me, I love March Madness. Might be the best event in all of sports.
Yeah, I agree totally.
Okay. However, that event being so great has completely rendered to many people the regular season worthless in that particular sport because there's so many teams that get in. Basketball, college basketball is a tournament sport. College football has always been a regular season sport. What is the number for you where this starts to feel like March Madness? In other words, we've really taken the emphasis off the regular season, and now the only thing that matters is the tournament. Now the only thing that matters is the playoff. Are we already there right now?
We're close. And I think 12 is something that people would welcome. I think when you get into 14, 16, 20. I think folks are thinking, have we watered it down to the point of where it almost doesn't matter? You've got a little bit of that. And look, I'm being a hoops fan and cover it, and I'll be brief about this, but I've always thought basketball starts way too early. It starts in November, but basketball ought to start in December. Look, I've even talked to people who think by basketball ought to start in January. And if you did that, look, I know about it run into other sports. I get that part. But the reality is, you've got so many people that really don't pay attention to basketball until after signing day in February or after the Super Bowl. So what can they do to save themselves during the regular season? I mean, the tournament delivers in conference play and also in the NCAA. But I really wonder if basketball was ever going to look at their own regular season, see what they could do to boost interest in it.
Well, Brent, here's a novel idea. Rewards teams for having great regular seasons. True. By giving them more NCAA tournament bids. I'm going to blow your mind with something. I just found this out today, Brent, looking at the Atlantic 10 conference tournament. Number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 in that conference all got beat in the quarterfinals. So the top 4 teams in that conference are out. None of them are going. Also, here's another one. The University of Toledo has won the MAC 4 years in a row, the regular season, but has not been to the NCAA tournament because they haven't won the MAC tournament championship. I mean, we have rendered the regular season in a single bid conference completely useless. Why play a regular season at all when all that matters for the entire season is the conference tournament? I think it's time to start reducing the number of teams from power conferences who get in. I think you said yesterday, Mark, something like 9 Big 12 teams are expected to get in. It's ridiculous.
Yes. Well, and look, guys, I've never been a great fan of expanding the NCAA tournament. I think we've almost reached the saturation point now. But to your point, that's incredibly unfair to run through your conference and win it. I'm saying this hypothetically by 4 or 5 games, and your team has one bad game or one bad half or one bad 5 minutes, and you're out of the tournament, and the dream that these kids have had snatched away from them. I would actually be in favor of expanding the tournament if we could save some of these teams, just like you mentioned, that had tremendous seasons that are kept out by losing one game or having a bad half.
So you're in favor of expanding, Brent. That's interesting. There's talks of expanding it to 80. I would go back down to 48, add importance back to the regular season, make it mean more to actually make the tournament. I'm watching Florida play every single game, Brent, if only 48 teams get in. If 68 teams get in, I'm saying to myself, well, if my team can't be one of the 68, why am I watching anyway? That's a lot of teams not to be even among that group.
I understand. And look, I normally wouldn't say to go for expansion, but if that is the only way that some of these teams that we talked about, who basically who had a tremendous season and virtually got robbed at the end, that they could get in. I mean, I think I'd be for that, frankly. But I think at this point we're okay. I'm not sure how you would expand, frankly, unless you just had what I've heard that they could do is add, I don't know, an infinite amount of games to those Tuesday, Wednesday games, the play-in games that they do that they will have next week. I don't know. It's like the NIL. It's a difficult concept to wrap our hands around.
Brent Beard joining us here, Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Brent, who is this year's Missouri? That team that no one expects to be really good, and suddenly they're really good. Do you have a team that you think, SEC or non-SEC, around the country that could just be ready to pop?
You know, NC State has had a really nice last few years. I mean, could that be a team that could catch fire and hit double digits? I mean, unfortunately, it won't be the Gators because they're going to be their schedule is so brutal that they're going to do well to hit 6 or 7 at this point. Is there a way that could Auburn and Freeze do that, guys? I mean, if they can get Patrick Thorne settled down, they've got better receivers. And the Cam Coleman kids, Arquez Hunter comes back. I think that defense is going to be better. I mean, Auburn's looked at as, I think, 7.5. So you're basically at 8. If they had 2 upsets, could you say Auburn could be Missouri?
Brent, I've seen a lot of puffing out the chest from Texas fans over the past week or two. Not that that's anything new, right?
No.
They're a very, very humble bunch down there in Austin. But are Texas and Oklahoma in for a rude awakening, real rude awakening when they join the SEC, or do you think they'll have a chance to be good?
I think they'll be good. I think the rude awakening is going to be Diesel and Mark, is that they're going to find out they're not going to run the conference. I mean, they basically ran whatever conference they have been in. And I think probably they've approached this. Maybe the SEC brass has been kind of nice about this right now, but there's going to become a time to where they're going to make it apparent that they don't run the SEC. And I'll tell you what might do it is this horns down situation. Now, look, I get it that it's derogatory, but the Gator chomp and, just pick something else in the league that's going on that people make fun of. Texas need to get over horns down pretty quickly, because I can tell you there's no one in the conference.
Wait a minute. How is it derogatory, Brent? Like, what is derogatory about that?
They in their look, it doesn't bother me, but in their minds, that they look at it as almost an obscene gesture.
Listen, they're too sensitive to be in the SEC if that's their take.
Are we sure Texas Longhorn and A&M Aggie fans aren't exactly the same people? Because they're a sensitive bunch too.
Well, yes, they are. In that meeting on, if it comes up on Thanksgiving night, could be one for the ages.
Brent, what are you doing at 6:20 p.m. this evening?
Oh, well, I was going to say I'd be probably watching basketball, but or I may be getting a quick bite to eat before the first night game comes open.
That's the incorrect answer, Brent. You'll be talking to me at 6:20 because I'll be giving you a call then. Okay.
Excellent.
All right. Sounds good, buddy. Thank you so much for the call. Okay. Thank you so much for all you do for us, as always.
Brent glad to help, guys.
Brent Beard, Heisman Trophy voter, joining us right here on Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, the Fan Upstate. If you missed that, you'll be able to hear it again at 6:20 p.m. this afternoon. Really good insight there, as always. All right, one of the best traits of any host is the ability to hold himself or herself accountable. I will do that on the flip side, here on the show that gives you both sides. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Sometimes it's just a bad matchup for you, man. Earlier this year, Auburn 101, South Carolina 61. Right now, under 4 minutes to go before the half, Auburn 34, South Carolina 22. What is it about Bruce Pearl's bunch and company that is so difficult for South Carolina?
They're not that hard to beat. App State beat Auburn.
That's true.
Not that hard.
But
Honestly.
the thing that I'm noticing is South Carolina tends to put the clamps on people defensively. They gave up 101 points to Auburn in regulation the last time they played. You know, that Auburn is on pace to have more than 40 points in the first round this time around. So whatever clamps they have, don't lock them. They need a new chip clip for Auburn. This one, man, ain't working. It is not working at all. Okay, here's how you guys can take part in the show. You can give us a ring at 844-326-3663 on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone, and you can hit us on the text line at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. Guys, my belief is that hosts should always hold themselves accountable. One of the least becoming traits a host could ever have is to make a bold take, run from it, say that that's not really what I meant, change the subject. A show that I listen to, Colin Cowherd, he says he has a segment called Where Colin Was Right, Where Colin Was Wrong. It's great. Why? Because all the stuff I told you, this kind of stuff, right, flexing, he does that in one segment. But he doesn't spend the rest of his show, going through where he was right, where he was wrong, etc. So anyway, guys, I was doing a little spring cleaning. Can you do that before March 21st, official day of spring? But I was doing a little spring cleaning at the casa, and I came across a sheet of paper that had all of the predictions for 2023 college football. My predictions for 2023 college football. And I looked at this and I said, oh, well, I'm interested to see how I did, right? How did I do? And then when I did that, I said, okay, Mark, before you get into the numbers here, make a commitment to your audience, the Offsiders, right now in your solitude. Make a commitment that whether these results are good or bad, you are going to share them with your audience. You're going to share them with your audience, right? And so that's what I'm going to do right now. I have my 2023 SEC football predictions, and I have next to them the actual finishes of these teams. And you guys can tell me whether I did well, whether I did poorly, because the reality is, guys, you never have people contact you to tell you, hey, Mark, you nailed this. You only have people that contact you to tell you, I told you so. I told you this. I told you that, right? So here we go. I picked Alabama to finish 11-1 overall. Alabama finished in the regular season 11-1 overall. Wow. I picked Arkansas to go 7-5. Arkansas finished 4-8. Not so good. I had Auburn finishing 7-5 with a 3-5 record in the SEC. Auburn finished 6-6 with a 3-5 record in the SEC. I had Florida finishing 6-6, 3-5 in the SEC. Florida finished 5-7, 3-5 in the SEC. Maybe my Florida bias was worth a game, I had Georgia going 12-0, 8-0 in the SEC. Georgia finished 12-0, 8 in the SEC. Could you be any more perfect? I had Kentucky finishing 8-4. Kentucky finished 7-5, off by a single game. I had LSU 10-2. LSU finished 9-3. I had Mississippi State 5-7, including a 1-7 record in the SEC. And my friends, I am like butter because I'm on a roll. Mississippi State was 5-7 and exactly 1-7 in the SEC. Now, here is where I run into a little bit of a problem, okay? I'm going to flex before my fall. I had Missouri going 5-7, 2-6 in the SEC. You know that didn't happen. Missouri doubled my win total, 10-2, 6-2 in the SEC. I had Ole Miss going 7-5, 3-5 in the SEC. Ole Miss went 10-2, 6-2 in the SEC. I also, and you Gamecock fans who think I say nothing but negative things about you? Listen to this. This was my prediction for South Carolina a year ago in terms of what they would do during the regular season. I had the Gamecocks going 8-4. They finished 5-7. I said the Gamecocks would be 5-3 in the SEC. They were 3-5 in the SEC. I had the Gamecocks 3 games better than they actually were. All right? 3 games better. I picked Tennessee to be 10-2 last year. Tennessee finished 8-4. I picked Texas A&M to be 9-3 last year. Texas A&M was 7-5. And I picked Vanderbilt to go 4-8 last season. Vanderbilt finished 2-10. I did say Vanderbilt would go 0-8 in conference play. They did go 0-8 in conference play, but I thought Vanderbilt would go 4-0 in the non-conference, and they went 2-2. So now that I share all of that with you guys, how did you feel about my predictions a year ago? Did I do well? Did I fare better than you did? I think there's always going to be a team or two that you nail, and there's always going to be a team or two that you are way off on. Like nobody saw this coming. You know, that's why in the last segment, I asked Brent Beard, I said, who is this year's Missouri? Who is this year's team that's going to light it up that nobody sees coming, right? And he's giving you some ideas and he's giving you some answers, and there you go. But I saw this, guys, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do something here that a lot of people wouldn't do. You know, like I'm going to call myself to the carpet. Because if you want to hold yourself accountable, and we all should hold ourselves accountable, I'm of the opinion that this job holds you more accountable than just about any other job, because now with streaming and with YouTube and with podcasts, you guys have every word we say. Every word we say, you've got it. So, hey, Mark, I'm going to isolate this thing that you said that was wrong and this thing that you said that was wrong, right? You can do that about everything that we say. The accountability in this field has to be strong, and you should never run from your opinions, whether they are right or whether they are incorrect.
Yeah, I said that sports listeners are the most pedantic people in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Like they will remember every little detail, every little thing you say, and they seek every chance they get to tell you that you're wrong.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we had this texter earlier who came out of the woodworks and said, well, you said that Graham Neff said that if this happened, then that's moving the goalpost. Like, no, that's not exactly what was said, texter. You got to be able to think in nuance, okay? It's not always ones and zeros. It's not always black and white.
Yep.
And you know as well as I do, Mark, we flub all the time. We say the wrong stats. You know, it's the people who will say, well, you said that so-and-so had a 224 average. They've got a 229. You're wrong. You're an idiot. Those people exist.
And you always say, Diesel, well, actually.
Well, actually.
Right? So,
actually.
Guys, the highlighting of wrongdoing and misspeaking. You know, Tony Reale on ESPN got his own show on Around the Horn, but he used to be the errors guy on Pardon the Interruption. They would have errors at the end of the show, and he would research to make sure what they were saying were accurate. And almost every show, they had things that they said that weren't accurate, or they made a mistake here or there. There has never been a show where I didn't say to myself, man, I could have said that one better. Or, man, I boop, boop, boop. Let's back that one up. Let's try that one again. But my predictions last year, okay, SEC, here you go. 10 of my 14 SEC teams, I got within 2 games of their actual record. So I either nailed it, was within a game or 2, but 10 out of 14 teams, I was within 2 games of nailing the record completely. SEC football. The 4 that I missed, the 4 that I was not within 2 games, had Arkansas 7-5. Arkansas was 4-8. I had, let's see here, Missouri 5-7. Missouri was 10-2. I didn't see that. Didn't see that coming. I had Ole Miss 7-5. Ole Miss was 10-2. And I had South Carolina 8-4. And South Carolina finished 5-7. You know, it amazes me, Diesel. Like it amazes me. And I'm learning as I go here that perception doesn't equal reality. You know, people manifest the perception that they want. You never say anything nice about South Carolina. You never have anything. They manifest that destiny. I had you way better than you actually were. You know, like I bought what Shane Beamer was selling with wins over Clemson and Tennessee at the end of the 2022 regular season. I guess I'm the sucker, right? Because Gamecock fans, you were one of the teams that I was most off on.
We don't have the audio. I mean, I could go back and find it. The Lamont Paris audio. It's fantastic, where you said not a single team in your predictions finished where you all voted that they would finish.
Right.
Not one in this entire league. You didn't get it right once.
And more than half of the teams in the league, he said, didn't finish within 3 places of where the SEC media had them finish, right? So I look at this. What is, I want to say 10 out of 14 is, what is that, 70%? 10 out of 14, let me see here. Carry the 2, drop the 1. 10 out of 14 equals 71%. So at a 71% clip, my predictions, ladies and gentlemen, last year on the Southeastern Conference were within 2 games of the actual record. I'll take it, right? I'll take it. And I believe you would as well. I believe you would as well. All right, 844-326-3663 is the Renewal by Anderson fan phone. You can hit us on the text line as well. It's 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. And up next, my friends, the best and worst case scenarios for Clemson and the Gamecocks 2024. Your opinions welcome. We follow up last year's predictions with a look in the crystal ball of our own. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Wonderful to have you guys with us on a Friday. Halftime. SEC quarterfinal. Auburn Tigers. I thought it was only the Clemson version of Tiger that beat South Carolina this bad, Diesel. I guess not. 46-26. 46-26 at halftime. Auburn has played South Carolina 3 halves of basketball this year. They're an average of 20 points better per half.
Well, much like me after I eat too much Taco Bell, South Carolina's going to have to go on some runs here in the second half.
Wow. This is crazy, man. This is absolute craziness. Yeah, man, the runs are coming, and they're coming early, and they're coming often, but not in a good way for the Gamecocks here early on. Guys, do the Gamecocks have a comeback in them? I don't think South Carolina's one of those teams designed to be down by double digits.
I think they're designed to lock you down defensively and then only have to outscore you, by scoring in the 60s.
Yeah, that's it. Like, they're designed to be in a close game, right? I think Auburn has this one just about as locked and loaded.
Tyler on YouTube says Lamont Paris fleeced South Carolina with the big extension that he just got. Was it 6 years? It was a big, big extension.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, I thought we would do this here. All right. What would you say? Okay. If I were to say this to you, what would you say would be the best and worst case scenarios for Clemson and South Carolina football 2024? If you're a Clemson fan, if you're a Gamecock fan, you've played the scenario out in your head, right? Like best and worst case scenario. You've looked at the schedule already. You know who's on the schedule. You're aware of all of this already, right? But you've also probably said to yourself, what's the best and worst case for my team? Well, I welcome you to share that with us on the text line at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. To me, the worst case for Clemson is actually pretty ugly, if I'm honest with you. Georgia is a very likely scheduled loss. You don't just go to Atlanta, Georgia in the Mercedes-Benz Dome and beat the Georgia Bulldogs. So Clemson is starting 0-1. If Clemson doesn't get their head out of their backside after that game, Appalachian State's coming to town. Don't laugh. We saw Furman hang with Clemson a season ago, right? Furman hang with them. Then They get NC State after an open date. Then they get Stanford then they get Stanford as well. In terms of gimme games for Clemson on their schedule this year, you don't have one until November 23rd against the Citadel. So, to me, worst case scenario, okay, would be you start 2-3. Georgia gets you, at Florida State gets you, and then one of Appalachian State, NC State, or Stanford gets you. That is a very, very bad worst-case scenario. I think then Clemson would win at Wake Forest and Virginia to be 4-3. They'd beat Louisville at home 5-3. They'd beat win at Virginia 6-3, maybe lose at Pitt 6-4, and you'd be 7-4 with South Carolina coming to town. That, to me, is the all-time worst-case scenario for Clemson. Can you imagine, Diesel, waking up on October 6th and the Clemson Tigers football team? What would the tenor, what would the vibe, what would the atmosphere in this studio be if on October 6th, or the first show here would be October 7th, a Monday, on October 7th of this year, which is April, May, June, July, August, September, October, 7 months from now, okay? If we're hosting a show and it's Clemson is 2-3, what's that like?
Ooh,
it's end of time.
It's ugly.
Right?
It's mean. The Tylers of the world, Tylers from Spartanburg,
Wes
come out of the woodworks.
Yeah.
Wes comes out of the woodworks. Like a guy like Wes, who I'd be willing to bet Wes from Spartanburg has never said anything too untoward about Dabo Swinney. Never had a negative thing to say about Dabo Swinney. But I'd be willing to bet you that those thoughts start creeping up in his mind, and they start, we start hearing more and more of those people.
I think worst case scenario, 8-4, 7-5, depending on that South Carolina game, last game of the year. Worst case scenario for Clemson. Best case scenario, I do not see a best case scenario of unbeaten with Georgia on the schedule. I don't. I'm sorry. But you could make an argument that Clemson's the favorite in all the rest of their games. At Florida State might be the closest one to a pick'em. Florida State loses a lot. My hunch would be Clemson would be favored by about a field goal at Florida State in that game, but we will see. So best case scenario, I think for Clemson this year, 11-1 and make the Final Four. Make the Final Four. Make the playoff, win the ACC. You get a first round bye. You win a game. You're in the Final Four. Everybody's happy, right? I mean, that would be, in my opinion, the best case scenario for Clemson. 11-1, 11-1, win a game in the playoff, make it to the semifinal.
Yeah, maybe you played Georgia relatively tight in that game. You don't get blown out and embarrassed by Georgia, and then you go on a run for the rest of the season. Everybody's feeling as good as they possibly can. I mean, people will dismiss that and say, well, it's Georgia. Like, everybody's getting blown out by Georgia. They're really, really good. Cade Klubnik still wasn't there. A lot of rust from the offseason, but you make it into the college football playoff and you win a game. I'm with you there. I'm with you there as best case. Worst case to me is, the wheels sort of fall off. You lose 4 games, one of those being to South Carolina at the end. You go 0-2 against the SEC in your regular season. I think that's probably worst case scenario. And it just shows that you just don't have the finances to compete.
Well, and that's, that Clemson is going to start to be at that level of realization. Should that be the case? But when I gave my grade scenarios for Clemson, I think A through F are all possible. Best scenario, winning the ACC, making the college football playoff semifinal. I think that's possible. The F scenario, I think, is also possible. Fail to win the ACC, fail to earn a college football playoff at large berth. Why is that possible? Because the last 3 years, Clemson has finished on average number 16. Only the top 12 make the playoff. And if you finished unranked, that would be an F grade for the 2024 season. I think an A is also possible. How about the Gamecocks, man? How about the Gamecocks? Best case scenario for South Carolina. What do we think? Old Dominion, Kentucky's a winnable game. Akron's a winnable game. Ole Miss at home, I'm going to say, is a winnable game. A&M at home is a winnable game. Vanderbilt should be a win. Missouri at home should be a winnable game. Wofford at home should be a winnable game. At Clemson, you've already won at Clemson. Okay, so what are the games? What are the unwinnable games on South Carolina's schedule 2024? At Alabama, at Oklahoma, and I think at home against LSU, just too much talent for the Tigers. 9 games are conceivably winnable. All right. But I'm going to say the best case scenario for South Carolina 2024, I'll go 8-4. And that would include a win over Old Dominion, win over Kentucky, win over Akron, win over Ole Miss, win over Texas A&M, win over Vanderbilt, win over Wofford, and then you split the 2 games, Missouri at home, Clemson on the road. 8-4, best case scenario for South Carolina.
Oh, you're asking for a lot here with the wins versus A&M and Ole Miss. I think they at least split those, drop one of those 2 football games. I think best case scenario, you start 3-1, you get a win over Kentucky, who's been a bugaboo for you for a number of years. You surprise a lot of people, and you get a late season win against Clemson again. I think 7-5 is probably best case.
Wait a minute. I'm the one who's negative on South Carolina, and you're telling me the best case scenario is that they're 7-5?
Yeah,
that's the.
This is a brutal schedule.
It's not Florida's schedule. Florida's got 9 ranked opponents.
Come on.
Okay, 9 ranked opponents.
Yeah, what are South Carolina fans going to crow about? This has been one of their calling cards over the past 3 or 4 years. Is we've got the toughest schedule in the country. We've got the toughest schedule in the country. You don't have that anymore.
Worst case scenario. All right. Oh boy, this could get really ugly. All right. Worst case scenario would be a loss at Kentucky and a loss to LSU, a loss to Ole Miss at home, a loss to Alabama at Alabama, at Oklahoma. There's 5. A loss at home to Texas A&M. There's 6. A loss to Missouri at home. There's 7. And then a loss at Clemson. There's 8. Then, Diesel, you ask yourself, if they were that bad, could they then potentially lose an Old Dominion, an Akron, right? A Vanderbilt, not a Wofford, but could they then lose one of those 3? I'll say no. I think the best case is 8-4, and I think the worst case is 4-8. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I mean 4-8. That's bad. That's real bad. But
Yep.
You add on top of that, Shane Beamer starts another fight with another media member, or maybe he trips and falls.
That. I don't know anyone.
Yeah,
who he's done that
he
with.
trips and falls in a towel cart. Has one of those kind of bad days where he's just so angry he says "dag nabbit" and he falls sideways into a towel cart. Like things could get bad. I mean, we've obviously seen the media gaffes. He's beaten up on inanimate objects for some reason. Like if those types of things continue, the narrative gets even stronger that he can't control his emotions.
All right, my friends. Those are our best and worst case scenarios. What are yours? 844-326-3663. And we've got the top 5 at 5 coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, MARC RYAN and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, MARC RYAN and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Always grateful to have you guys with us. What's up to all the good folks on YouTube? Seeing you out there today. YouTube, the Fan Upstate on YouTube is where you guys can get to us, and you can hit us on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone. 844-326-3663, and the text line is at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you guys go on the show. All right, my friends, it is time for us to do that jam. We call it the top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate, Offsiders. The top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
Before I get to this, I should update you. South Carolina's trying to make it a game. Auburn has not scored yet in the second half. It's 46-29 Auburn over South Carolina here in the early going half number 2. South Carolina is going to have to show something that's kind of out of character for them. They've got to show an ability to kind of catch fire and just become like a shootout team, like kind of the Golden State Warriors, in order to come back in this one. I'm guessing with their defense, it's still going to take 80 points to win. So do you have 51 points in you in the second half? That's not the style of team the Gamecocks are. So anyway, who got better? Who got worse thus far in NFL free agency? On the better side, I've got the Natty. I've got Cincinnati has improved this team, has improved this roster. Why? How come? Well, you see, Cincinnati added safety Geno Stone from Baltimore. Got more athletic at the running back position. Lost Joe Mixon, but added Zach Moss. Kept T. Higgins, Clemson wide receiver for now anyway, on the franchise tag. And they get back Joe Burrow. Expect Cincinnati to be a contender next year. They have improved. Also improving, the Green Bay Packers. Kind of a no-brainer, right? I mean, look, started from the bottom, now they're here. They made it to the postseason last year. They upset the Dallas Cowboys last year in the postseason. And what do? They had 2 elite starters at their respective positions. Josh Jacobs, the running back from the Las Vegas Raiders, won a rushing title, okay? And they add Xavier McKinney, the safety from the New York Giants. Now, Green Bay forced a tight window throw from opposing quarterbacks only 12.4% of the time last year. That was 3rd worst in the league. Xavier McKinney led all players who lined up at the safety position, forcing a tight window throw at 31%. So Green Bay adds 2 elite starters while saying goodbye to 7-year vet Aaron Jones at the running back position. They have gotten a lot better. And how about the Philadelphia Eagles? Wow. All I can say is Howie Roseman was at the University of Florida. He's their GM at the same time I was. Did I pick the wrong career? Who knows? But he is acing this. He's acing this free agency.
I bet you get far more sleep than he does.
I bet you I do. Sleep like
but his
a
bank
baby.
account's got far more zeros on it than yours. So it's like,
yeah. If your bank account has zeros, that doesn't mean you are a zero, right? No,
right.
It doesn't. Okay.
Yeah, you want all the zeros after the big number, not before the big number.
Okay. Yeah, mine come before, unfortunately. Mine is 000 points. You know, there you go. I got Saquon Barkley. They added Bryce Huff from the Jets. 2nd best pass rush win rate in the entire league. They get back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, also a Gator. After his 1-year lease to the Detroit Lions, goes back to Philadelphia. They add Devin White, Super Bowl winning linebacker from LSU, also the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Guys, I mean, they added difference makers. Philadelphia took a step back. They lost a lot in free agency last year. That's what happens when you have to get off of that quarterback rookie deal. They had to pay Jalen Hurts finally, which meant they lost a lot of their talent. They recouped a lot of their talent right now. Philadelphia is my 3rd team that has gotten better. As you guys know, for every yin, there's a yang. For every sunny day, there is a rainy one. Here are the teams that have crapped the bed. The Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have absolutely crapped the bed here in the early going. Why? Well, why are they being so inactive? Congratulations, you got linebacker Eric Kendricks, 33 years old, instead of him going to San Francisco. But what Dallas really needed to do was to rework and achieve contract extensions for Dak and CeeDee Lamb in order to spread out their cap hits for future seasons. By not doing that, by avoiding that, they don't have any cap room, or they're not able to move around and manipulate that this year, which could end up costing them 8-time Pro Bowl tackle Tyron Smith, 5-time Pro Bowl cornerback Stephon Gilmore. And who is the replacement for Tony Pollard? Who's the replacement there? Anyone? Bueller, Fry? There is, again, this arrogance emanating from the Dallas Cowboys that they're going to be okay. Meanwhile, all of these elite players are getting taken up.
The Cowboys are 3rd from the bottom in available cap space for 2024. They've got just over $2 million available to them.
Make it make sense.
Compare that to the Commanders, who have $64 million in cap space.
That's why they needed to rework the deals. And they're taking their sweet time reworking the deals. Meanwhile, all the good players are getting scooped up. Also, leaving a stain on the sleeping arrangement. The Denver Broncos. Look, this grade was inevitable when they chose to eat the contract of Russell Wilson. $85 million dead cap hit. It's the largest dead cap hit in the history of the NFL. And because I'm not going to say Russell Wilson is a cancer, but that situation was cancerous, they just said, go away, we'll deal with it. They end up cutting second-team All-Pro safety Justin Simmons, 24 years old. Why? Because on a franchise that's totally rebuilding, it can't justify paying $14.5 million for a safety, I guess. But they have added nothing, and they've lost a lot, a whole lot. I'm sorry, they added a long snapper. How dare I? And then we've got the New Orleans Saints also. Look, they got a coach on the hot seat. They got a quarterback who's underachieving. The Saints have had this plan to restructure almost every contract on their books, right? As opposed to going out and being active in free agency. Let's restructure the contracts, which kind of limits their ceiling to winning the NFC North. If that to you is the Super Bowl, congratulations. But, they've got this weird thing where they want to restructure everybody. Okay, restructure everybody. That's our priority. Meanwhile, you don't make the team better. They lose Lonnie Johnson. They lose Jameis Winston. And they bring back Tyrann Mathieu. I don't know, man.
That makes sense if you're an 11-12 win team and you can do that. But when you're 9-8 as they were last year, you're not beating down the doors for the playoffs or wins in the playoffs.
Yeah, at all.
So you can't make yourself any better
at all. And that's what's going on with the Saints right now, man. Kind of brutal to see, if I'm honest with you. Next up,
4.
At number 4 on the show today. One of the important traits I think of any host is accountability. So I want to make myself accountable to you. I found, doing a little spring cleaning back at the Casa, I found a page that had my predictions on it, SEC predictions for 2023. And now we will call out and reveal where I was right, where I was wrong. Alabama, I said would be 11-1. Alabama was 11-1. Arkansas, I said would be 7-5. Arkansas was 4-8. Yikes. Auburn, I said 7-5. 6-6 they were. I'll take it. Florida, I said 6-6. Gators were 5-7. Maybe I had a one-game Gator bias. Georgia, I said 12-0. Georgia finished 12-0. Kentucky, I said 8-4. Kentucky finished 7-5. Very good. LSU, I said 10-2. They finished 9-3. Outstanding. How about this, my friends? Mississippi State, I said 5-7, 1-7 record in the SEC. They were exactly that. I'm going to hype myself up until this point because I'm setting you up for the fall. I said Missouri would be 5-7. They doubled that. They were 10-2. I said Ole Miss 7-5. They were 10-2. I said South Carolina would be 8-4. Gamecock fans, I said you would be 8-4, and you were 5-7. Tennessee, I had 10-2. They finished 8-4. A&M, I had 9-3. They finished 7-5. And Vanderbilt, I had 4-8. They finished 2-10. All told, 14 teams in the SEC. My predictions were within 2 games of 10 out of 14 teams. 71% of the league. I think that's pretty doggone good. What say you? Next up.
3.
All right, so as the Brad Brownell turns, we are still having a lot of conversation, right? A lot of conversation out and about my conversation with Graham Neff almost a year ago at the Clemson spring game, where Graham told me if Clemson basketball does not take the next step next season, there will be a change. Well, we've had some listeners who take that to mean that Brad Brownell is already safe because they've made the tournament. I wouldn't say that at all. You can't prove that. What Graham Neff told me was that if they didn't make the tournament, there would be a change. There was no guarantee that making the tournament would avoid the change. And if I am Graham Neff and if I am seeing the big picture, you know what I say? I say that it's time. I say it's time, guys. You're watching the wheels fall off again on this team. The best Clemson roster in a decade is 11-9 in the ACC. The best Clemson roster has lost 3 of their 4 games to teams that won't make the tournament. if you look at the big picture, if you look at, okay, they made the tournament in a vacuum, Brad Brunell is safe. But I get the sense Graham Neff already fired Amanda Butler, ladies head coach. I get the sense he's a big picture guy.
Brad Brunell's 55. He could coach for another 15 years if he wanted to. Clemson fans, are you signing up for this for another 15 years?
Why would you do that to Clemson fans? Why would you remind them of that very, very sad
Is
fact?
this who you want to be in 2034? In 2039? You still want to be this team who's getting embarrassed in the first round of the NIT to Morehead State. You're getting embarrassed in the first round of the ACC tournament by Boston College. Like, isn't it better to try to improve your station than to just settle for where you are?
One would think.
It's better to try and fail than not to try at all.
55-33, Auburn over South Carolina. Wow. Next up,
2,
at number 2, how about best and worst cases for Clemson and South Carolina 2024? Best case for me for Clemson, 11-1, only lost to Georgia, win in the college football playoff, making it all the way to the Final Four of the college football playoff semifinal. That would earn a grade of A. Worst case scenario for Clemson next year. Guys, there's a way they start 2-3. 2 wins, 3 losses. Loss to Georgia, loss at Florida State October 5th, and then a trip up somewhere at home against Appalachian State, NC State, or Stanford. All teams capable of beating you. That is a very painful picture. That picture would see Clemson 7-4 heading into the South Carolina game. Maybe they finish 8-4, maybe 7-5 is the worst case scenario. You better hope that can you imagine that the temperature here if Clemson starts 2-3? You know the loss to Georgia's happening. You better win those 3 tricky games, and then you hope you don't have 2 losses again a month into the year at Florida State. What about the Gamecocks? Best and worst case scenarios. I say, Diesel, 8-4 is the best. 4-8 is the worst, because there's really only 4 baked-in wins here. Old Dominion, Akron, Vanderbilt, and Wofford. Only 4 baked-in wins. Schedule is very, very difficult outside of that. But I do think 8-4 is possible. You are a little bit more pessimistic.
Yeah, I'm more leaning on the 7-5. You said they were going to split against A&M and Ole Miss. I think it's very possible that they lose both of those games. A&M's going through its turmoils, but not Mike Elko, I think, is ultimately going to have them operating as a pretty good football team. But my worst case scenario for Shane Beamer is that he picks another fight that he shouldn't. You know, he inadvertently starts a fight. Yeah, with a towel rack. He inadvertently says something about a women's team that's on the field when he thinks they're not supposed to be on the field. Like, these things are a pattern with Shane Beamer.
Undefeated in life, Diesel, are death taxes and equipment and walls when you punch them. They are undefeated against the human body.
Yeah, this isn't Japan where we got walls made out of rice paper, okay? Walls are made out of solid stuff in this country.
No, and Gatorade coolers and all that stuff.
One thing we're doing right.
That will never lose. That will never lose. And finally,
1,
at number 1 today, Xavier Legette, what you give? Carolina Panthers giving him the googly eyes. I think Carolina's being a little too obvious about this. I do. The reports are that they love him, and the reports are that Xavier Legette is not going to go before Carolina picks with a first pick in the second round. But they're basically announcing that this is who they want, letting any of the 31 teams trade up to 1 spot ahead of him if that's your guy. Xavier Legette would obviously love the possibility to team up with his fellow SEC brethren, Bryce Young, and stay close to home, Carolina. Here's Xavier on this chance.
That'll be great, man. I'll be right down the road. It'll be a little easier for my family to come watch me play. So that'll be great. That's just them telling me that they want me on their team, man. A lot of coaches came and hollered at me before and after this process here, man. A lot of them, man, they say they got a buzz in their facility for me, man, and I'm just ready to see where I'm going to land.
I don't speak John Deere. What did he say?
Yo, I've seen Xavier Legette. I did not see that voice coming out of that body, okay? I didn't see that voice coming out of that body. I'm surprised by that.
Dang old.
Diesel and I have a theory that you can tell a woman's attractiveness by her voice.
Yep.
I found that to be true about 90% of the time. Okay, 90% of the time, you could tell if a woman is hot by the sound of her voice. The only exception, the only time I've been wrong on this in my life, there were some hot women back in my single days that had raspy voices, scratchy voices, and you can't tell that they're hot by the voice, right? You can't tell that. But I did not see that voice coming out of Xavier Legette.
Mad Kraft called him a tobacco chewing Southern fisherman that plays football.
Oh boy!
Wow, Mad Kraft.
Very good player. Very good player. I think Carolina is showing their hand here, and I don't think they should. Like you got Xavier Legette saying there's a buzz about me in their building. Come on, man. Come on. Can you keep it just a little bit on the down low? There are all things we got to keep on the down low. You got to do a little bit better than that, I think. Those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's the Renewal by Anderson fan phone. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. We'd love you on everyone. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Mark Ryan, that is MARC Ryan, at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. All right, up next. It is the best event in all of sports, right? So what is your strategy for it? I'll show you mine if you show me yours. On the flip side, here on the show that gives you both sides. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Mad Kraft, appreciate you staying with us throughout the entire show, being such an active member. Appreciate you guys every single day for being a part of this, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend, man. We love you. Take care.